Assuming the worst, do your problems not exist? Is disappointment in your future? Hello, and welcome to Anxious Humor. Good morning, I'm Michael.
It's 10 o'clock at night. And I'm Rihanna.
We are super excited about bringing Anxious Humor to the masses and look forward to bringing you more episodes as the future proceeds. Today's episode is about our anxiety and how it started for us, as well as an interview with our buddy Antonio to talk about how roommates affect his anxiety. So let's jump in. So when you were having your first panic attack, or when your parents found out about your first panic attack, was your dad like, "Oh, that's anxiety"?
I mean, kind of. I don't really remember that, probably because I was panicking. But I mean, I kind of remember him saying like, "Oh, she's just having a panic attack. It's okay. She's fine." Because my mom was like, "What's wrong? Oh my God." Kind of. But I don't remember like that vividly. The only thing I remember is like the feeling and what caused that feeling, not necessarily like an image or the people around me. Does that make sense?
You don't remember the memory. You just remember the trauma.
Right. I remember trauma. Trauma's more than I remember like details.
I mean, that's part of the trauma, right?
Probably. I don't know.
How did they handle it?
My dad had dealt with it since he was a teenager. To be like, "Oh, I know what this is." And then I like saw my counselor, and then the counselor wasn't working. And then so I went and saw a therapist and then a psychiatrist, and then I got on medicine. So for a pretty young age, we knew what was going on, kind of why it was going on, and like how to deal with it and the people to go to. But I don't know how they dealt with it. They just kind of did something about it and didn't say, "You're on your own, kid." Because that's what my dad went through. And he was like, "You're not going through that."
So you said you were on Paxil for the first time when you were like 9?
No, I was on Prozac.
Prozac, that was it.
Then I was on Paxil.
Right.
Prozac stopped working and you built up resistance to it. And I just like kept increasing in dosage until like it was like, this is the highest dose you can take. And it wasn't working. So they're like, "Well, let's switch you to Paxil." And Paxil, they think for a minute, maybe Paxil like did the same thing. And they tried to switch me back to Prozac.
Wait, you started Prozac in high school?
I started Prozac when I was 9.
Right. Paxil when you were in high school.
Switched to Paxil when I was in like either late middle school or high school, like beginning of high school, because Prozac stopped working for me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of drugs you can build up like in a resistance to. There's a word. I can't remember it, but
Immunity.
it's not immunity. It's not like you're immune to it. You're just,
I'm about to look it up.
it's like tolerance. Tolerance.
That's the word.
There we go. Tolerance. Like an alcohol tolerance. You drink enough beer, you're not going to get drunk as quickly. But I don't know why Paxil hasn't like plateaued like that. But maybe because I've been like slingshotting. No, what's the word? Rubber banding with that for so long. Like going up in dosage and then going down and then going back up and then going down. Then having a bout of something that I still don't know what it is and I have to go to a therapist for. And then going back up. Because right now I'm on 30 milligrams. But I've been on 40 milligrams while we were dating.
So how old were you when you had your first panic attack, and what was the trigger?
My anxiety / hypochondria started really early for me. I was in the 4th grade. It kind of started in the 3rd grade, but it was in the 4th grade. I learned about these type of worms, and I don't remember what they were called, but they're like native to Africa. And then like some children can get them in sandboxes that have been peed in a lot. Anyway, there's these type of worms that will crawl under your toenails and go to your brain and eat your brain. I'm not joking. Still kind of scared of that, but not so much. That's how it started, was with the toenail worms. And then like I got on top of the slide at recess and I wouldn't come down. I was like crying and my counselor was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm going to die if I go down there and stand in the dirt," because children have been peeing in it. That was kind of like my first like hypochondria kind of thing, like phobias. But my first like actual real panic attack / anxiety attack, it was Christmas time. And my dad was like, "Oh, we have poinsettias. Make sure you don't eat them." But he was joking around because like, you know, poinsettias are poisonous if you eat them. I mean, probably not enough to kill you. Probably have to eat a couple.
No.
But I'm saying like, it's not probably going to be fatal if you eat a bite of a poinsettia.
Probably not.
To animals, probably. Anyway, so I touched it by accident.
Oh, no.
I touched it. And in my head, my irrational anxiety, my fear was like, so that's going to seep into your skin, get into your bloodstream and kill you. It's time to panic. So that was my first panic attack, was because I touched a poinsettia and it was horrifying.
Because your dad was like, "Hey, don't eat this.
It's poisonous.
Don't eat this poisonous plant."
But like it was probably his anxiety too, like telling me like just in case I'm a stupid kid and try to eat a piece of this plant because my anxiety came from him.
Yeah.
Like I inherited all of that. And so my mom was like, what the is going on? So yeah, that was my first anxiety attack.
Well, my first anxiety attack was when we were living in the apartment, and I never experienced any kind of anxiety or any kind of panic attacks at all. So I thought I was dying. My heart rate skyrocketed. I got cold sweats.
That's a panic attack.
It wasn't like, no, that's a panic attack, but it wasn't caused by anything. It was just like spur of the moment, like my body saying, hey, you suck.
I could be wrong, but I think that's the thing. Like panic attacks happen for absolutely no reason. And then anxiety attacks you cause or like bring on yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe not as severe, but maybe they're both severe. I don't know.
All right. I don't know what the severity would be.
Sorry to interrupt. You said that and I was like, wait, I think that's the difference between them.
Yeah, it is. I don't think there's a difference in the severity of whether it's a panic attack or an anxiety attack. I think it's more just like how long it lasts.
Really?
No. That's not how like it's determined, but like the difference between the two is panic attacks is brought on by nothing, just because your body hates you, and anxiety attacks are self-inflicted.
So are people with anxiety masochists? What were you doing?
We were laying in bed and absolutely nothing happened. I just laid down, got really flush, and got sweaty. Well, it wasn't the first time that I've experienced anxiety more than once in my life. Just I've never had a panic attack until that point. So we lived together for a really long time before I had any kind of anxiety related panic attacks or panic attacks period.
Which could be brought on by drug use as well.
Yeah, but we'll get into substance abuse in a later episode because that's a whole nother story.
Well, it's in your family though.
No, it's in your family.
It's also in your family.
Yeah.
Your mother, both of your sisters.
2 of my sisters. I don't know if Katie has anxiety.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's definitely like, I think you were predisposed to it. Like it's something that was probably eventually going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't think my parents really knew as much about it as they do now.
Well, I don't think anyone knew as much about it when we were growing up as we do now.
Yeah, it's become a lot more talked about than it was when we were a lot younger. People just like dealing with it and not realizing that it was something wrong with their brain.
Right. But I think a lot of people nowadays are using the term anxiety and like panic attacks real loosely. I'm not saying that not a lot of people do have it. Like it's a really common like mental illness, but honestly, they've never had a panic attack in their life. I'm not demeaning anyone else's trauma or bad experiences, but I just think it's thrown around really loosely. I mean, yeah, that's the end of my thought. There's nothing else to that. That's my statement. I'm trying to find something to compare it to. Like you can be anxious. Anybody can be anxious. Anybody can have a little bit of anxiety, but not everyone has an anxiety disorder. Like I'm diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And I have like hormonal imbalances and I take medicine to kind of level that out. And it doesn't always level it out. It's not like the best. Honestly, I think the best medicine has been our dogs. I haven't had a panic attack in a really long time.
Animals help.
Animals help a lot. Not to say that I couldn't live without my medicine. Everyone's cure is different. Not cure, but everyone's healing remedies, whatever, are different. Dogs in general. I just like animals.
When you were growing up, you had a little bit more exposure to being around people who have anxiety. So I think that you were kind of like grandfathered into understanding it a little bit better.
So it's a cult now.
No, I don't think it's a cult. It can be. We can make anxiety a cult.
I don't want to be a part of it.
With my family, it was a little bit different because even when I was younger, we were grasping the idea of anxiety and it was kind of like popping up in all of our lives, all of our personal lives, as far as like me and my siblings go. When I came out and said, hey, I think I might have anxiety or like I'm anxious, my dad would tell me that there's no reason to be anxious. Why are you anxious? And I don't have a reason. So I would shut it and walk away.
See, mine went from 0 to 100. Like there was no stop being anxious, shut it out. It was, you're going to have a complete freak out right here in the middle of Walmart at 9 years old, which was awesome.
Yeah. Is that when it started, when you were 9?
Yeah, I was like 8 or 9 years old. I might have like just turned 9 because it was around Christmas time. And then I was prescribed Prozac. And I took Prozac for the longest time, stopped working. Then I started taking Paxil, tried to get off it, had a really bad experience with that. And now I'm on Paxil again. Might be on Paxil for the rest of my life. I'd like to live without help from medicine. If it's something that I need to do to be comfortable for the rest of my life, I guess I'm okay with it. As long as it's not going to be detrimental to me. The only thing detrimental is trying to get off of Paxil. It's a hell of a drug. It was a little different for you because you could hide your anxiety.
Yeah. It wasn't so much
It was more of an invisible mental illness, like a lot of mental illnesses are. Like you could hide it and people generally wouldn't know. Like I know it's researched and like what chemical imbalances cause this and blah, 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 blah. I know there's like a connection between your gut and anxiety, and it's called gut anxiety. And I think I have a lot of that. But again, like you said, there's not like a lot of work on that and not very many specialists, which when I go see the GI doctor, I'm going to talk about that and be like, hey, sometimes when I have to take a crap, I panic. Also, my digestive system makes me have panic attacks. What's happening? But I don't know if that's like I'm having a panic attack, so I'm really gassy and have to poop. Or is it because I have to poop that I'm having a panic attack? I mean, it's probably both.
Yeah, probably both. Did you want to ask any questions about my anxiety?
When you had your first panic attack, I was there for it, and I've been there ever since through this development of your anxiety, which is kind of also rubber banded up and down. Like it's gotten really bad, but then it got really good, but then it got really bad. But now it's okay. You don't really.
It's manageable now.
Right.
It's just a matter of keeping myself occupied, because whenever I'm not doing something, it's when I get anxious or I start to feel panicky because
you think too much.
Well, I feel my body more.
People with anxiety are like hypersensitive and hyper aware. And that's like why some people can feel heart palpitations and why some people can't.
Right.
Like the first heart, how you feel, you'll always be able to feel it from there on out because you're aware of it now. Some people can go their whole life without feeling them. Everybody has them. Some people have more than others, and it might be an issue. I don't know.
I have heart palps a lot.
Right.
Not every day.
I mean, I have some. I haven't had one in a while. I do when I'm gassy, which is why I think mine is linked to my stomach, or a big portion of it. I'm still like thinking I have a blood clot every day, but I just think it's linked to my stomach.
Okay, so we're going to move into our anxiety corner segment where we'll be talking with Antonio about having roommates and having anxiety. Now, what's the main thing that you want your roommates to understand when you talk about your anxiety?
So the first thing, honestly, would be them understanding that it's not sadness. Like, that's the main one. Like, it's not just being sad, or it's not just, hey, let's just do something that you like today so you can stop, being anxious. And, because that's usually what they link it to, sadness. Like, oh, what upset you today? It's like, sometimes there's nothing that's upsetting me. Like, I want them to know it's like a shadow looming over me and just decides to smack me in the back of the head at random times of the day. And it's just like, oh, you suck. Oh, my bad. To them, I feel like they see it as a, oh, just stop thinking about it and it'll go away. It's not an on and off switch. It's, like I said, it's a big shadow looming over my head, smacking me in the back of the head.
Depression and anxiety kind of go hand in hand, but
They
a lot
do.
of people will correlate them like that they're the same thing. Like, yeah, you can be sad when you're anxious, but that's not necessarily a depression thing or anything easily that you can just be brought out of.
Yeah, I want them to get that it's a chemical imbalance in first and foremost, and it's not, nothing else. But I think Joe, he understands most of the time because I've known him for so long, so he's had time to understand it. On the other hand, Miguel, I love him to death. He's my brother, but I feel like he lives in butterflies and flowerland.
Yeah.
He does.
Butterfly and flowerlands is cool, but just imagine your butterfly and flowerlands being sprayed with pesticide and all your flowers are dying. Well, that sucks. Get rid of the pesticide. I'm like, but you don't know where the pesticide is coming from. See, that's the thing. It's a bunch of bugs just coming out on your flowerland and just eating everything. Like, oh, there goes your daffodils, dude. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Oh, you can't control it.
I kind of relate to that because for the longest time ever, the only person I had to say, like, my anxiety was kind of inherited. The person I could only relate to who understood like any sort of ounce of what I was going through was my dad. And it was a really big problem in college, even with my roommates and my friends who really didn't understand like necessarily what a panic attack was, what depersonalization was. The only people I knew to call, because during this time I didn't have a therapist or anything like that. I didn't have the money for a therapist. I didn't have health insurance. And it wasn't until I met Michael and he started kind of going through what I was going through that I had anyone to like turn to or confide in, because he was the only one who could really understand like and know on a personal level what I was going through. I kind of call him my safety blanket. It's just the switch in your brain that you can't control. And people don't understand that, like you said, you can't just turn it off. It's a chemical imbalance. And thank God I have medicine that helps me with that. But, medicine isn't the cure all.
Getting help is great, and medicine exists for reasons like that. Like even, over-the-counter pharmaceuticals, unfortunately, they're not good for you, but, we got to do what we got to do to not, freak out in the middle of Food Lion.
Yeah, I totally understand the freaking out in Food Lion thing. That happens quite often for me.
My roommates don't understand that. Like, oh, well, that's just bad for you anyway, man. You need to survive out and inside you. Like, what does that even mean to me, man? I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to push away your logic, but it sounds like you're kind of making fun of me by, telling me to reach within myself.
Which is another thing, like the different types of anxiety. I don't have like crowd anxiety or like public anxiety or anything like that, like Michael does. So a lot of times it's hard for me to understand like why he's getting anxious in the middle of the mall, or like why he's like, we have to leave soon. I can't do this. And I mean, we do. I'm conscious of his anxiety, but that's something I don't understand.
I don't really have like crowd anxiety when I'm with somebody, because then I can just be myself with somebody, some shit gone into that. But as soon as I'm alone, then that's when I'm like, okay, I do have crowd anxiety when it comes to parties, because there's a lot of people and a lot of information being thrown at me, even information that I'm not paying attention to. My brain can still hear it. So I'm sitting there like hearing about this person's problems, and I'm like, bro, shut up, go somewhere else. Like, we're at a party. I want to leave. I'm good. When I'm on alcohol, it's even worse. But, I'm trying to, get drunk to ignore my head. But like I said, when there's a bunch of information being thrown at me from different people in the crowd, I tend to just snap, and I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah. Being at parties is definitely a big issue for me. Being around a lot of people in a small space, for one, is kind of rough on me, just because it's kind of like overstimulation. So like your body doesn't know what to do. So it just freaks out and just reels on a lot of the possibilities that, could possibly happen. Like, who knows?
Someone having a knife,
or like a mall getting shot up or anything like that.
Oh my God.
That's...
I have that thought a lot. Being, a Mexican, in these states, I grew up around a lot of gangs and stuff. My old apartments, every like possible gang member that somebody knows in Charlotte, they all grew up in the apartment complex that I grew up in. So I was always seeing guns around my whole life, and that's honestly what started like, my panic attacks. It was trauma of seeing constant gunfights.
Yeah.
So, I'm always thinking, oh, what if that dude has a pistol on him? The way he's standing, it looks like he's got a pistol on him. I know he's probably not going to shoot me, but some guys just can't handle being, tried, or some guys, their masculinity starts to flare up, and then they're like, no, I'm a big bad man, I need to shoot people.
No, I definitely have that similar association with guns. But for no reason at all, just from culture today. It's just very gun forward.
I don't think it's gun forward. I think there's a gun problem that's not being dealt with, and that's what we can't get over.
Right.
I mean, I'm in the same way. I'm terrified of guns. I don't want to be near guns. I don't want to be around guns. But I think that stems from me overexposing myself to like true crime shows and listening to like all the horrible news that's going around. My anxiety taking a hold of that horrible news or that one situation and just like blowing it out of proportion. Like there's this one time while I was at work. This was like a couple of weeks ago. A guy, he was really rude, but he was just like overly aggressive with me because I had told his daughters that he could go get like 2 things from the back of the store, and he was like verbally aggressive, and it just, I don't know why, but for some reason in my mind I was like, he's gonna kill me. And so I literally went and hid in the back room until he left our store to go do an ear piercing, because I was terrified. Like I was terrified of him and what he could do, like a gun being on him or a knife or something. It was a very real possibility. But I think that's also me just listening to too much true crime.
Yeah. But then again, a lot of places like where we live and where you live specifically, there's a lot of gun violence there anyway, especially in like malls and public places. It's just a matter of like that one person being unstable and doing something that's not so good.
Bad, Michael.
Yeah, bad.
Also, you said earlier that, you had your dad, help you. And I think that's family, like, they don't know either. Like, my father, he's from Mexico, and he's been working since he was, like, 13. The only thing that's drilled into his brain is work ethics. But he doesn't know anything social or anything of the sort. And then there's my mother, who is overly religious. So everything that happens to me, like, I would have night terrors in the middle of the night, and I'll shake and move. And one time I ran into the kitchen and just slammed myself into the fridge. And then I woke up, and my mom thought I was possessed.
Oh my gosh.
So, it was hard in my family to talk about. I didn't even know the word was anxiety until I was like 15. I was like, oh, it's just me shaking and, me freaking out. But, I was listening to my mom. I was like, oh, maybe I am possessed by a demon. Can you at least, like, buy me some ice cream and not, fuck with me all the time? But yeah, like, my mom, didn't understand. And my brother, honestly, he's very similar to me, but, it's because of the experiences that he's gone through in his life. And, my mom and my dad pretty much treat him like garbage and picking my sister over us. But, but he doesn't deal with it properly. He just gets angry. So whenever I remember having a panic attack one time when I was 17, and instead of trying to help me calm down, he just yelled at me and screamed at me. And I'm just like, this isn't helping, man.
You're right. I was really fortunate to have my dad there. But he kind of went through the same thing. With his parents, they're like super Baptist, overly religious, and they didn't know, they just kind of thought that like he was a bad kid, and every time something happened to him like that and he didn't understand it, and he would have talked to them, it wasn't, let's go try to get you some help. It was, we'll just pray to God and it'll get better, I suppose. But it don't work like that.
Yeah, for me, like growing up, I didn't really have a whole lot of anxiety. So like, I don't even think I had anxiety at all. I might have mentioned it like once or twice, maybe in like high school or something like that. But most of the time it was just written off. The questions that were asked were, what are you anxious about? So whenever I would get those questions, I would just freeze up and get anxious to answer a question about like, why I'm anxious. I don't know why I'm anxious.
You don't have to have a reason. Anxiety is irrational. It's unreasonable.
I had a counselor / therapist in high school when I was 15. I was going to school in Miami for a year, and my mom was wondering, why I was acting all this way, and why my grades had been shitting itself, and why I don't talk to nobody anymore. And she decided to hire a therapist and brought him to my school counselor. And I don't know who pays this guy, but the first thing he asked me was, why are you anxious? Like, that's not what a therapist asked. I'm like, where did you find this guy? And it was the worst. Like, I felt like I was being interrogated by detectives, but it's a school, and one of those detectives is my mom. It was the worst feeling ever. And I remember this. I'll always remember this. The principal and the therapist both said, you know what helps with my sadness? I jog. I just jog all day. Wonderful, man. Like, I just snapped and I just cursed up a storm. I was like, I can't believe that you paid this person to do this. Like, I don't know a lot about the world, but I know this isn't right.
It's definitely kind of intrusive when people like tell you that their sadness is the same as your sadness. Because I don't think people,
that kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, I don't think people really understand that nobody's sadness or anxieties are the same. So that's not always a solution for others.
Right, like exercise doesn't help me. Exercise, if anything, makes me more anxious because I think my heart's going to explode. I didn't say this, but like my anxiety stems from like health concerns. Like I'm a hypochondriac. So I've tried exercising, but like whenever I try to do cardio or anything, it just scares me because I think I'm going to have a heart attack.
Understandable. Your heart does tend to race real fast during panic attacks. So, your body's like experiencing the same thing. It's like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh no.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's like a fight or flight reflex, but it's a shitty thing when you have anxiety. And it's just like you associate those feelings with the anxiety usually. So it makes it hard not to associate those feelings with anxiety.
Which is, probably why I think I'm having a heart attack. I just associate a racing heart with a panic attack.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Antonio. We'd be happy to have you on another time. Take it easy, buddy. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening.
That sounded really unenthusiastic. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to an episode of Anxious Humor. This episode was produced by Michael Harkins. The voices of Anxious Humor are Michael and Rihanna Harkins. You can subscribe to our mailing list and find more information on the podcast at www.anxioushumor.com.
Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app and go follow us on all of our social medias with the convenient handle Anxious Humor.
If you'd like to talk with us about your darkest fears and anxieties, give us a call at 864-719-2205.